Bruce here with an episode of Chordplay, and this is the Chords of KISS. And I've had a lot of requests for KISS, and recently featured Ace Frehley in a 3-for-all, and even featured some KISS music way back on that 70s chord, which is an early chordplay, lesson on this channel. And there's a lot of serious things, happening in the world today. And when I was putting this lesson together, I thought, this is going to be good because it's going to be fun. It's going to be relaxed. We're going to, kind of get a little silly. And for those of you that watched Ace Frehley's 3-for-all, or maybe that 70s chord, then we're doing a KISS lesson, and we have a special guest. So please welcome back USB Ace Frehley to the show. Regardless of how you feel, love them or hate them, I've met a lot of people in my life that were just hopelessly obsessed with KISS. It started back in middle school and high school, but I've met so many people that had big collections of memorabilia and albums and dolls and stickers and mirrors and posters and shirts and costumes and capes and boots and all kinds of stuff where it's like, wow, you really love KISS. I'm a casual KISS fan. I really just like Ace Frehley and KISS in the 70s. I think that's really cool. Everything beyond that, I respect it, but I'm not really a fan. I'm not really chasing down like KISS things from the 80s or the 90s. But KISS in the 70s, for me personally, is where it's at. That's awesome. It's very simple, kind of caveman rock and roll with a club, in your hand. But it's effective, and a lot of those riffs and guitar solos and the imagery and just that larger than life kind of persona, was infectious, and it made the whole world stop and take notice. And obviously they're very popular in America. Also very popular in Japan and in Europe and all over the world. With the opening, that shocked me from Love Gun, one of Ace Frehley's kind of signature tunes. And I've always liked this riff because it's unusual, because he's bending into a G, and we'll get to that. But this thing. Right, so we're basically playing with this D over A to an A. It's kind of like an inversion right there, or a slash chord. And after he kind of gets done with this boogie woogie kind of A thing, then he basically grabs this F sharp, strums that with the open D and the open G, and then bends that F sharp up to G. So he's kind of flirting with G major 7, technically, because you're grabbing the major 7 and bending it to the root, which is really cool. And you hear that bend, even though it's just a split second. That's really cool. It almost sounds like a slide guitar. And then right there, it was like a D major to a sus4, and then back to that bent F sharp. He just kind of hit the low E before going back into that A. Something like that. And I'm a big fan of that weird bend. That's just really cool and unusual. Up next we have King of the Nighttime World from Destroyer, something like this. And I just like that where they're jumping from the C power chord to a D, but then they're also playing the open D and open G, so it's kind of implying a G power chord. So it's almost this, but they're doing it like that, which is cool. And then once you do that, there's a couple repeats of that cycle there. Then they start reaching up and they're grabbing this, which is a modified version of that inversion or slash chord that we had a second ago. And that's up here. So we're basically kind of playing with D, and then they're adding the sus2 and the sus4. So that technically would be like a D sus2 sus4. And then a little piece of G, and then the top piece of that G. And then you repeat it again. So that's unusual, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. And you could also grab that G up here. I just think over the years I've slowly started putting that G right there. Let's break some of those chords down, because you'll definitely find those in a lot of Kiss music, but then you'll find them in music from the Stones and Led Zeppelin and the Black Crowes and Aerosmith and a ton of music. But let's just, start here in the key of A. So here's some Kiss chords. There's A, right? So if we add basically a D and a B right there, then we're playing that sus2, sus4 that we saw in King of the Nighttime World. So we're adding, the second and the fourth, right? The other chord in Kiss's, kind of up their sleeve, I guess, is we're going to basically move this B over to F sharp, and then that's going to change that to D over A, which is what we saw in Shock Me. So there's two chords, they're very similar, they're just slightly different, and it's just that one note different. That B note on the G is moving over to that F sharp on the D string. So they each sound a little different. Alright, so A sus2 sus4, D over A, and then A major. Now the nice thing about this little pattern of chords is you can relocate that. So let's move it up to the 5th fret, and now we're basically playing, a C over G, or part of a C chord. We're going to add the sus2 sus4, so then C sus2 sus4, and then we're going to basically move that finger over, and that's going to become basically an F over A right there, because A is the lowest note. So we're doing do the same thing in D, just move it up a whole step. And it's kind of neat, and Kiss and the Stones, and depending on who's playing these chords, they normally wouldn't use both of those chords back to back like that. They would choose one or the other. Or, for a good example of these sus2, sus4 chords, in Kiss's music, check out the song Ladies Room from Rock and Roll Over, and you'll find this. So there you can see we started in E, and then go down to A, and then repeat that again, E and A, and then move up to C, and then a G power chord to a D power chord, and then just start doing that blues kind of boogie woogie in E. But that's a good example of some of those chords. Rock and hard rock and metal would sound completely different if Kiss had never existed. And this example from Cold Gin definitely influenced, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of musicians and songs and guitarists. And it's very simple, but this is mega influential. Kiss had a lot of riffs like that, where it was partial chords kind of moving around the fretboard. There's an A power chord to a G over A, and then a D over A, and you're just kind of, mixing and matching those three chords. Something like that. think of a song like Got to Choose from Hotter Than Hell. And it's similar to Cold Gin, but there we're playing E minor over D, and then a C over D to a D. And of course that little unison bend thrown in there. But it's interesting to find those riffs like that, where they're just moving around. You know, and moving around between different chords, but using that kind of pedal tone open string. Kiss definitely had a knack for these twisting kind of, you know, power chord mutations and little variations to power chords, like I Stole Your Love from Love Gun, something like this. And there you can see we're just playing a C sharp power chord, but they keep going back to that partial B power chord. And then you hear him kind of shift up and he goes to a partial E power chord right there. And then it's a partial A to a partial B. So there's a chord progression hiding in the middle of all these like little double stop movements and erratic, you know, rhythm parts. Or think of another song like Makin Love from Rock and Roll Over. You know, once again, the kind of mixing and matching and playing with those double stops and chords. And there's an E power chord. And then right there, it's an E, you know, double stop to a D, to a B, back to that D, back to the E. And then do the E power chord again. And then right there, it's kind of implying like a D over F sharp. You know, right at the end of that little riff. The last example is probably a little unexpected, you know, on acoustic guitar suddenly. But this is the intro from Rock Bottom, which is from Dress to Kill. And the intro to Rock Bottom is this dreamy, kind of atmospheric, like acoustic intro that lasts for half the song. And then it just abruptly turns into a rock tune, you know, Rock Bottom. But I kind of wish that Ace and Paul had kind of fleshed this out and actually made it into a Kiss instrumental, like maybe layer, you know, harmonies or something, or just add a little bit more to it. Because it really does stand out, like in Kiss's catalog, when you hear the intro from Rock Bottom, it's like, wait, this is Kiss? You know, something like this. Right there, it basically starts repeating, and then eventually Paul comes in and they start playing like in harmony, and it almost sounds like a 12-string guitar, but it's actually two guitars, you know, kind of playing together or whatever, creating this melody and this kind of melodic chord-based idea. So he's basically starting with D minor, and then you're basically going to reach up and, you know, you're moving from this A to a B to a C and back like that. And then it's going to move to A minor, and then you're basically still moving from A to B to C and back. So these little partial chords, you know, partial D minor, and then partial A minor. And then this is interesting, it's like an F and then a sharp 11. And then you're kind of reaching up and grabbing the 7th right there. move up to G. So that's interesting because you have the sharp 4, and then on the G it's just a sus4 up to that D note there. So it's interesting to see that they actually flesh that out. You know, that's kind of flirting with Lydian right there. And then back to that A minor. So one more time there. You know, really interesting guitar part, especially for Kiss. And if you have a friend that plays guitar, you know, one of you should play that part, and then the other should learn Paul's, you know, kind of harmonized chord part and put that together. It's really cool. That's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of KISS. And definitely, like I mentioned earlier, you know, I definitely respect Kiss, and I really do like Kiss from the 70s. I think that's kind of interesting and fascinating. But I'm really just an Ace Frehley fan. And I know for some of you out there, there may be also Ace fans. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you might be more, you know, Paul or Gene or Peter or another, you know, member of Kiss, Tommy Thayer or somebody or whoever. But Kiss is legendary, and they definitely changed and kind of influenced the musical landscape in the 1970s, 80s, and they continue to influence people even today, which is amazing. You know, that's really rare. And for a group as kind of respected but also misunderstood, you know, that's really impressive that it's not, you know, a band full of Yngwies. It's Kiss, you know, where it's like kind of just the common man kind of rock and roll, but it's like, wow, their legacy has stood the test of time. And I'm definitely, you know, a fan and respect that legacy. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.